Aiden's eyes narrowed. It was trying to phase behind him, likely aiming for a sneak attack. Too bad for them, he could sense it. Using his iron dragon fist, he extended it behind him. As soon as the sentinel deactivated the phasing, Aiden's hand found itself deep in his core. Not only that, strings of shadow exploded inside the sentinel, tearing it apart from the inside. That's 7, now where are the other ones? Aiden exhaled sharply, rolling his shoulders. His body was battered, his arms trembling slightly from exertion. But he wasn't done yet. He slowly turned. 3 sentinels remained. These weren't just the strongest, they had been watching. Learning. Their red optics flickered as they advanced in sync, their mechanical bodies moving with unnatural precision. Aiden wiped sweat from his brow, grinning despite the pain. All right, you bastards. He flexed his fingers, his aura flaring to life once more. Let's finish this. Aiden's breath was heavy, his chest rising and falling as he took in the sight before him. 3 sentinels remained, but these were different. They moved in unison, their glowing red eyes tracking his every twitch. The way they adjusted their stance, how they anticipated his movement. They weren't just stronger. They were learning. One of them shot forward, moving with blinding speed, a streak of blue lightning crackling around its body. Aiden barely had time to react. This damn. The sentinel slammed a fist into his gut, electricity coursing through his body. His muscles spasmed, his vision blurred, and a strangled gasp left his lips. Damn, that was hard. He forced his body to move, twisting just as the second sentinel hurled a fireball at him. He barely dodged it, the heat singing his clothes as he skidded to a stop. Then the third sentinel phased through the ground. Aiden's eyes widened. Shit. Too late, a solid, armored leg burst up from below, slamming into his ribs with bone-shattering force. The impact lifted him clean off the ground, pain flaring through his entire torso. He barely had time to process it before the first sentinel appeared above him, fists wreathed in lightning. Aiden crossed his arms just as the attack connected, sending him crashing into the ground with an earth-shattering boom. Fuck. A spray of blood erupted from his mouth, splattering onto the ruined asphalt. His ribs screamed in protest, and for a split second, his vision flickered. Think. 1. He shoved down the pain, forcing his body up, just in time to see the second sentinel charging. Its claws, coated in ice, were aimed straight for his throat. Aiden's mind raced. No time to dodge, a counter. He twisted his stance, shifting into Iron Dragon mode. The moment its claws struck, iron scales coated his arms, taking the brunt of the blow. The ice still bit into his flesh, but he grit his teeth through it. With a snarl, he drove his knee into the machine's gut, sending it staggering back. The moment it faltered, Aiden inhaled sharply. Wind Dragon's roar. A torrential blast of wind erupted from his mouth, slamming into the sentinel with enough force to send it tumbling across the battlefield. Aiden landed on shaky legs, chest heaving. His body was on fire with pain, but he couldn't stop now. The first sentinel was already moving again, lightning crackling across its arms. Aiden barely managed to leap aside, but the machine twisted mid-air, adjusting its trajectory instantly. A fist wreathed in electricity slammed into his ribs. Crack. Pain. Blinding, searing pain exploded through his side as he was launched across the battlefield, his body slamming through debris. Ugh. He skidded to a stop, coughing violently, blood splattered onto the ground. His arms trembled, barely able to hold himself up. His breathing was ragged. I'm not gonna last at this rate. I need something. His eyes darted to the remains of a fallen sentinel nearby, its scraps littered the battlefield. There we go. Aiden pushed himself forward, ignoring the sharp pain in his chest. The second sentinel fired a fireball, but he ducked and rolled, barely avoiding the searing heat. He reached the wreckage and grabbed a twisted hunk of metal. With no hesitation, he shoved it into his mouth. The moment his teeth crushed the steel, energy surged through his limbs. His wounds knitted together just enough for him to stand properly again. All right, still in the game, baby. The first sentinel launched forward, a streak of electric blue cutting through the battlefield. Aiden roared, magic crackling around his arms as he leapt to meet it. His fist, coated in hardened iron, collided with the sentinel's head. The machine staggered, its metal dented inward. Aiden didn't stop. He twisted mid-air, his legs snapping out in a spinning kick. Get fucked. The sentinel flew backward, crashing into the ground, sparks flickering from its frame. Aiden landed, panting. His magic was draining fast. But two still remained, his body shifted. Shadows coiled around his form, his breath coming out in a cold mist. Iron Shadow Dragon mode. The remaining sentinels fired at once, blades of ice, bolts of lightning, fireballs, but Aiden melted into the darkness. He was a flicker of movement, a shadow between the chaos. One of the sentinels was caught off guard. Aiden reappeared behind it, his ironclad claws gleamed under the dimming light. Iron Shadow Dragon's roar. With a savage roar, he ripped through its frame, severing its core, creating a hole in it. The sentinel collapsed, sparks flying from its remains. Aiden turned toward the last one. "You're next." For the first time. A sentinel hesitated, its calculations were not able to keep up with the wide variety of abilities Aiden was using. This broke it momentarily. Aiden smirked. "Got you now." He surged forward, vanishing into the shadows again before reappearing behind it. His claws were raised, ready to end this. Iron Shadow Dragon's claw. "But I got you now. Brat." Aiden's entire body froze, an unseen force wrapped around his limbs, yanking him back mid-attack. Agony. Aiden's ironclad limbs twisted unnaturally. His insides clenched, crushed, distorted, his breath hitched, his vision blurred. Blood poured from his nose, his mouth, his ears. "What is this, pain?" suffered Aiden. Through the haze, he saw Magneto. The man was a wreck. His body was burnt, his face twisted in agony, but his rage burned hotter than anything else. Aiden's brain screamed for a solution. "I have too." With sheer, brutal willpower, he let go of his magic, dropping out of Iron Dragon mode. The second his body returned to flesh and blood, the magnetic force loosened, but the damage was done. His organs were in ruins. His vision was dark. And before he could even take a breath, the sentinel fired a searing red laser that sent him flying. The laser grazed his upper chest and neck, creating a shape. Blood gushed as the force sent him flying. 1. His body crashed through metal and stone, skidding across the battlefield. The world spun. He couldn't breathe. Pain filled every fiber of his being. Blood pooled beneath him. His eyes flickered, darkness creeping at the edges of his vision. And for the first time since the battle began, Aiden wasn't sure if he could stand back up. The battle raged on, the X-Men holding their ground against the Brotherhood's forces. Despite the chaos, they worked in perfect unison, countering every assault thrown at them. Charles, usually one to stay on the sidelines, had joined the fray, his telekinesis aiding in ways his students had never seen before. He focused on disrupting the Sentinels' ability to use their own telekinesis, ensuring they wouldn't gain an unfair advantage. "Logan. Now." Charles commanded directly into Wolverine's mind. Without hesitation, Logan lunged at the towering sentinel, claws gleaming under the dim underground lights. The machine, adapting mid-air, activated Magneto's powers, halting Logan's momentum as it turned its attention to Beast. Seizing the opportunity, Beast leapt high, aiming to bring his raw strength down upon the sentinel's head. But the machine, anticipating the attack, disabled its magnetism and became intangible, causing Beast to sail right through it. "Damn it!" Logan cursed as he dropped back to the ground. Jean, quick on her feet, reacted instantly. Using her telekinesis, she launched a barrage of rocks straight into the phased sentinel's body. The debris embedded itself deep within the mechanical structure, threatening to tear it apart the moment it resolidified. The sentinel, realizing the danger, sank into the ground like a ghost and re-emerged right behind Jean, its eyes glowing as it prepared to fire a laser at point-blank range. "Jean, move," Scott shouted, already taking aim. Without hesitation, Scott unleashed a devastating optic blast, catching the sentinel mid-transition between forms. The machine staggered, its head half melted from the sheer force of the beam. Logan didn't waste the opportunity. With a roar, he launched himself at the damaged sentinel and drove his claws deep into its exposed core. Sparks flew, and with a final twist, Logan tore through the machine's vital components. The sentinel let out a mechanical screech before collapsing in a lifeless heap. The battle had momentarily settled. In the aftermath, Bobby had managed to subdue John, encasing him in a thick layer of ice. Noriko and Jubilation stood victorious over Amara, both panting from exhaustion but still standing. Then, the ground beneath them rumbled violently. A deep tremor shook the cavern, causing rocks to fall from the ceiling. "Earthquake?" Beast shouted, looking around in confusion. Suddenly, Kitty came phasing through a wall, dragging an unconscious rogue behind her. She was breathless, panic written all over her face. "Everyone. It's Aiden," she yelled. The team snapped to attention. He's fighting Magneto and... Kitty swallowed hard. Emma Frost. What? Is that kid crazy? Logan barked. Charles immediately projected his voice into their minds. No time to rest. We move now. Wait. Just wait. Jean suddenly cried, her eyes darting around frantically. Everyone turned to her. Where's Quicksilver? She asked. A heavy silence fell over the team as they all scanned their surroundings. He was here. I saw him before we attacked, Jean insisted. But I don't see him now. Beast's face darkened. Could it be? We need to help Aiden, now, he declared. Shadowcot, Surge, Jubilation, Iceman, take Rogue and get out of here. The cave is becoming unstable. The younger X-Men nodded and hurriedly carried Rogue away from the battlefield. Logan turned to Charles, his expression skeptical. You coming, Chuck? Charles met Logan's gaze firmly. I may be the only one who can stop Eric. I have too. With no further argument, they all ran toward the storage room, toward Aiden. Aiden's body was a mess. He felt everything inside him was punctured, cut, or wounded. The Iron Shadow Dragon Slayer mode had almost completely coated his body in iron, and Magneto had made sure to use that to his advantage. The iron twisted inside Aiden's body, piercing as many of his internal organs as it could. I need to. I have to, Aiden gasped, crawling forward, unable to stand up. He channeled as much of his Water Dragon Slayer magic as he could, hoping it would heal him. But it was useless. His injuries were too severe for water magic alone. He gritted his teeth and tried again, combining Sky and Water Dragon Slayer magic, Sky to enhance the water further. Yet, it still wasn't enough. Magneto had won. It was over. He had lost again. Though he had injured Magneto badly, he hadn't killed him, and that was his fatal mistake. And now, the strongest Sentinel, one that had learned from the fallen ones, would roam free. Not only that, but Magneto would have the power to escape and create more of them. His new life had ended. It was over. Magneto leaned against the Sentinel, panting but victorious. Go. Go end that brat now. He must die here. Affirmative. Eliminating the target, the Sentinel's glowing eyes activated its laser vision, charging for the final blow. Fuck no, Aiden roared, his body running purely on adrenaline. Even standing up felt like hell. His entire body ached, as if he were carrying a mountain on his back. I have to. I will. Do it. His last remaining bits of magic surged within him, swirling chaotically. But then, something changed. His magic was merging, forming a new combination, one he had never dared to attempt. One he feared. A combination of 3 Dragon Slayer magics. Pain. Agony. His heart screamed in protest, warning him that this attempt could very well kill him. No Dragon Slayer had ever successfully combined 3 elements. 2 was the limit, anymore, and one magic would overwhelm the others, tearing the user apart. He had learned this the hard way when he had tried before, nearly killing himself in training. He had sworn never to attempt it again until he fully understood it. But now, he had no choice. The core of his magic flared violently, the 3 elements clashing within him like warring dragons, each trying to establish dominance, ripping into his body, shredding his insides. And then, they collided. Ugh! A huge surge of magic erupted, shaking the entire cave as a storm of energy burst forth. The Sentinel fired its laser. Aiden stood his ground. The beam struck him, lingering for a full minute, attempting to completely disintegrate him. Just die already, Magneto bellowed in fear. He lifted every metal fragment in the cave and crashed them all down where Aiden stood. Boom! A colossal explosion shook the cave. Smoke, debris, and dust filled the air. The walls cracked. The ceiling trembled, ready to collapse. Magneto's breathing was ragged, his body broken and burned, but his lips curled into a grin. He's dead. He's dead. He staggered forward, laughing through the pain. He is dead. I saved mutants. I will usher in a new age. But before his celebration could last, another explosion. A gust of wind swept through the cave, clearing the dust and debris like divine judgment. And then Magneto saw it. Aiden, floating in the air. He no longer looked human. A white crown of energy glowed above his head. 2 wings of wind sprouted from his back, their ethereal feathers shifting with every gust. His body was encased in flowing water armor, the current swirling like a living ocean. His once dark hair had turned completely white, his eyes glowing an intense azure blue. He looked like an angel descended to deliver judgment. Magneto fell to his knees, his breath caught in his throat. Fear gripped him. God has forsaken me. Aiden didn't say a word. His glowing eyes flickered to the sentinel. He raised both hands, his palms glowing with immense power. Divine Azure Dragon Slayer mode. Holy Azure Light. A radiant beam of azure energy erupted from his palms. The moment it struck, the sentinel's entire upper half was erased from existence, obliterated instantly. The beam pierced through the cave, tearing through the rock, cutting a path straight through the mountain, until its light shone outside, straight to the heavens. Aiden descended, landing softly beside the kneeling Magneto. The once mighty mutant, who had terrorized nations, looked up at him, his body burned, his strength gone, his soul broken. All I wanted was for mutants to be happy. To live a normal life. To be who we are, Magneto whispered, his voice weak and pained. Aiden's glowing blue eyes remained cold and unyielding. And yet you took that choice from others. The divine light in his hand surged once more, ready to deliver the final judgment. The X-Men arrived at the battlefield, their hurried steps coming to an abrupt halt as their eyes widened in disbelief. The cavern, once a fortified base, was now in complete ruin. Jagged cracks ran along the rocky walls, large chunks of debris scattered across the ground. A massive hole had been blasted into the cave ceiling, allowing pale moonlight to spill through, illuminating the devastation below. But none of that compared to what they saw next. 10 defeated sentinels lay sprawled across the battlefield, their once menacing forms now nothing more than lifeless wreckage. Their thick armor had been torn apart, molten metal dripping from gaping wounds. Some had massive claw marks running through them, while others had scorch marks seared into their frames, their circuits fried beyond repair. Impossible. Beast muttered, his scientific mind struggling to process what lay before him. We struggled with one, and he. Jean's breath hitched. He took down 10. Alone. But that wasn't all. In the center of the destruction stood Aiden. Or at least, what they assumed was Aiden. His small frame was bathed in an ethereal azure light, his very presence exuding an overwhelming power that sent shivers down their spines. His hair, once dark, now shimmered in a radiant blue hue, as if infused with divine energy. Faint, translucent dragon scales lined his skin, glowing softly. The legendary master of magnetism, one of the most powerful mutants in history, was kneeling before Aiden, his helmet gone, his once proud figure reduced to a battered, half-burnt shell of itself. His cape was scorched, his metal armor warped and twisted, his once commanding presence completely shattered. Magneto's hands were trembling, his breaths ragged. Blood dripped from a wound on his forehead, trailing down the side of his face, mixing with the soot and ash that clung to his skin. His entire body was barely holding itself together. Eric. Charles muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Charles stepped forward, positioning himself in front of the X-Men as he spoke with a firm yet pleading tone. Enough, Aiden. It's over. We've saved Rogue. There's no need for this much destruction. We can hand all of them over to the authorities. I promise you, Eric will be put in a special cell devoid of any metals or anything he could manipulate. It's over, son. Aiden tilted his head, his glowing azure eyes locking onto Charles with an eerie calmness. Then, a smirk formed on his face. What's over? Oh. Let me guess. You want me to let him live? Charles' expression turned desperate. Aiden, if you don't let him live, you'll only become another him. Please. Aiden chuckled. Another him? Now, that's a good idea. Without hesitation, divine light shone from his hand, and in a flash, Magneto's hands were severed. Ugh. Eric's agonized scream echoed through the cavern, his body trembling as he fell onto his knees. Blood gushed from the stumps where his hands had once been. His silver hair was matted with sweat and ash, his face contorted in unbearable pain. He glared up at Aiden, his fury barely masking his agony. Why you? Just kill me, you monster. Charles gasped in horror. Aiden, stop. It's enough. He moved forward, desperate to reach him, but a pillar of radiant light descended from the heavens, striking the ground between them. The impact cracked the earth, sending a wave of heat through the air. The X-Men instinctively backed away, shielding their eyes from the brilliance of Aiden's divine power. Aiden's voice rang out, cold and absolute. Anyone who crosses that line will be treated just like him. Beast's hands clenched into fists. Why are you doing this, Aiden? You're better than this. The X-Men hesitated. The sheer pressure of Aiden's power made their every instinct scream at them to stay put. But Scott Cyclops wasn't having it. His visor glowed ominously as he snarled, "You're just going to turn into a murdering fucking monster." Aiden didn't even look at him. A wave of water surged from the ground, crashing into Scott like a raging tsunami, sending him slamming into the cavern wall with a sickening crack. His body went limp as he passed out instantly. Jean gasped. "No. Scott." Her powers flared in an instant. Crimson energy crackled around her hair lifting from the sheer force of her unleashed power. But before she could make a move, Aiden appeared right in front of her. His hand gently cupped her chin, tilting her face toward him. His glowing azure eyes bore into hers with an unreadable expression. "Know your place, Phoenix. You're in the presence of divine punishment." Twin beams of light shot from his fingertips, striking both sides of her temples. Jean's body stiffened, her eyes rolling back as she let out a soft gasp. Then, she collapsed. The battlefield fell into silence. Aiden turned his gaze back to Magneto. Logan snarled, his adamantium claws unsheathing. "It must be something to do with that weird form of his," he growled. Aiden turned toward the remaining X-Men, his smirk returning. "You're correct. It does. But that doesn't mean I'm not acting like myself." He gestured toward Magneto, and suddenly, the air howled. A ferocious gust of wind lifted Magneto's battered body into the air, holding him aloft like a ragdoll. His limbs trembled, his breathing ragged. Then, his body began to tear apart. The X-Men watched in horror as Aiden's power ripped Magneto's flesh piece by piece, yet somehow, he remained alive. Conscious. Through it all because Aiden wanted him to. Aiden's voice thundered through the cavern, his tone filled with divine authority. "I've wanted to do this to him for a long time. For all the suffering he's caused. But your precious morals don't allow it? Well, I am different." His radiant aura flared, the very air trembling under his presence. "Divine punishment is what I am." His words echoed with a celestial weight, as if the heavens themselves acknowledged his claim. A holy one created to bestow judgment upon sinners. And there is no sinner greater than him. The X-Men could barely breathe under the sheer force of his presence. Aiden didn't lie. He didn't even know this himself, but the divine azure dragon was a holy emissary, the harbinger of truth, the punisher of sin. The lives he's taken. The pain he's caused. And you want him in jail, Charles? Why? Because he's your ex-friend? Aiden's voice roared through the battlefield, shaking the very earth beneath them. No. He's a fucking monster that should be treated as such. No jail for him. No redemption. Only death. And with that, boom. Magneto's body exploded from the inside out. Blood, water, and gore splattered across the ruined battlefield as Aiden manipulated the very fluids inside Magneto's body, forcing them to detonate from within. Silence. Aiden floated down, his body untouched by the blood that had painted the cavern red. A swirl of divine water cleansed him, leaving him pristine. He turned to Charles, his expression unreadable. Both Beast and Logan instinctively tensed, their muscles coiled, ready to react. But Aiden simply stared. "I deliver punishment to sinners." His glowing eyes locked onto Charles, his next words carrying an almost divine decree. "And you, Charles, are responsible. Had you killed him earlier, you would have saved countless lives. But you didn't." He took a step closer, his aura flickering. "You are responsible." The weight of his words sank into Charles' soul like a crushing boulder. Aiden's smirk returned. "Your punishment shall be knowing that." Then, he turned his back on them. "Oh, and by the way." He cast one last look over his shoulder, his divine presence almost blinding. "I'm out of your fucking pathetic school." And with that, Aiden vanished. A silver blur cut through the darkness, stopping abruptly in a hidden hideout far from the battlefield. A gust of wind followed, dissipating as the figure holding another person came to a halt. "Whoa. Wow. Now that was exciting," the young man exclaimed, exhilaration evident in his voice. His silver hair shimmered under the dim lighting as he turned to the woman he had carried away. Emma Frost groaned, her senses reeling from the sudden displacement. "What the hell? Where am I?" she demanded, eyes narrowing as she took in her surroundings. Her gaze landed on the speedster, clad in silver, who vanished before she could say another word. She pushed herself up, scanning the room. Large monitors flickered in front of her, displaying multiple angles of the cave where the battle had taken place. A woman sat in front of them, her red attire making her presence all the more striking. The tension in the air was palpable. Zip. The silver light returned, and this time, the speedster had a new passenger, Mystique, unconscious in his grasp. "I'm back, sis. Got them here just like you asked," he announced, gently dropping Mystique onto a nearby chair. Emma's eyes widened as she processed the situation. Recognition dawned, and desperation took hold. "Magneto. Go save him. We were fighting. You're his children, right?" she pleaded. The red-haired woman finally turned her gaze to Emma. There was no emotion, no flicker of urgency, only cold certainty. "Father is already dead." Emma froze. The words carried the weight of finality. The woman speaking them was Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Pietro zipped beside his sister, arms crossed. "Yeah, we figured that would happen. So we didn't help," he said casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Emma's expression twisted into fury. "You let your father die?" "Yes. Does that surprise you?" Pietro scoffed. "He's not even really our dad." Wanda's gaze remained steady. "He never listened. He was lost the moment he chose to fight a dragon slayer. My father saw the world as black and white, mutants and humans. But he was wrong. He should have listened to me." Emma clenched her fists, barely able to contain her rage. "Dragon slayer? That boy? That damn brat. And you let him live? Why? What even is a dragon slayer? He's just another fucking mutant." Wanda sighed, rubbing her temples. "Explaining this to each of you one by one is getting tedious." She snapped her fingers. Mystique jolted awake, her breath hitching as her eyes darted around. Wanda didn't wait for questions. "Just so you know, Eric is dead. No more Magneto." Mystique's expression darkened, her lips parting as if to protest, but Wanda continued before she could. "My powers are rooted in chaos. I am a witch of it. And when I tell you that boy would kill me in an instant if I fought him as I am now, I am not exaggerating. He would absorb my chaos and develop immunity." She gestured, and a web of glowing red lines branched out in the air, resembling a vast, tangled tree. "The multiverse is massive, but it follows patterns, minor variations, sometimes drastic ones. But Aiden Blake? He is absolutely unique. Across all timelines, there is only one of him. And in all of existence, there is only one Dragon Slayer mutant power." Her expression hardened. "Meaning, it's not a mutant power at all. He's pretending." A book materialized in her hands, flipping open as if possessed by unseen forces. "I have no idea how he got here, nor the full extent of his abilities. But one thing is certain, his power originates from outside our multiverse. It may even surpass my chaos magic and the Phoenix Force itself. And if that's true..." Her fingers traced a glowing line in the air. "He possesses infinite affinity with this magic. He is displaying abilities across a wide range of arcane arts, combining them effortlessly. That means if we want to defeat him, we need more than just one plan." Pietro yawned exaggeratedly. "And that's why we gathered you. And we'll gather more people too. Honestly, we're more of an avoid him squad than a kill him squad, but we will do our research." Emma stared at the twins, realization sinking in. She had seen the boy's raw power firsthand, his immunity to her telepathy, his overwhelming force. It made sense. They needed more than brute strength to take him down. She took a deep breath. "I'm in." Mystique, after a moment of silence, nodded slowly. "If it means we avenge Eric. I'm in too." Aiden collapsed to his knees, his breath ragged as he coughed up a mouthful of blood, staining the ground beneath him. Pain surged through every fiber of his being, his body screaming in protest. His transformation had undone itself before he could reach the city, leaving him weak and vulnerable in the middle of nowhere. The dense forest surrounded him, dark and silent, save for the faint rustling of leaves in the wind. Despite the agony, Aiden could feel the slow, soothing effects of his water dragon slayer magic mending his wounds. His healing factor was working overtime, knitting his battered body back together. His breathing steadied, though the memory of what had just happened haunted him. "What was that back there?" he muttered, gripping the dirt beneath him, his fingers trembling. "It was as if I wasn't myself. But at the same time, I wanted that." As if in response, the familiar voice of the Dragon Slayer system echoed in his mind. "Host has unlocked the form, Divine Azure Dragon Slayer mode. Note 1, the Divine Azure Dragon is a lawful good dragon that serves order. It is the punisher of sin and the representation of God's judgment upon the earth. Note 2, when in this form, Host's inner desire will be to deliver punishment to sinners of the world." Aiden's eyes darkened with contemplation as he absorbed the information. He clenched his fist, recalling the overwhelming surge of power, the absolute sense of righteousness that had coursed through him. It hadn't just been strength, it had been something deeper, something that had dictated his very actions. Looks like my understanding of the system isn't as solid as I thought, he muttered, exhaling sharply. I'm unlocking powers even the anime didn't have. He stood up, stretching his sore muscles as he took one last look at the place where he had collapsed. He had barely scratched the surface of his potential, but one thing was clear, he couldn't afford to stay at Xavier's any longer. With Rogue saved and the Brotherhood of Mutants dismantled, many of its members ended up behind bars. Among them were John, Amara, Blob, and several others. However, in the chaos, it was later discovered that Quicksilver, Mystique, and Emma Frost had managed to escape. Rogue remained hospitalized for a week, recovering from her injuries. The first thing she wanted to do upon waking up was thank Aiden, talk to him, see him, but the moment she asked, she was met with shocking news. Aiden had quit Xavier's school. Not only that, but his mother, Lucy, had resigned from her teaching position and left alongside him. At first, Rogue and the entire X-Men 2 team wanted to go after him, to at least speak with him, but Charles Xavier had forbidden it. In his eyes, Aiden was a dangerous, reckless killer, a lunatic who had lost his way. He made it clear, anyone who sought Aiden out would be expelled from the school. At first, that warning didn't deter them. They were willing to risk it. Then, Bobby received a letter, one addressed to all of them. Hey everyone, it's me, Aiden. I know, you all want to come with me, join me on my newest adventures and all that. And trust me, I want that too. But right now, it's better if you all stay in school. Don't get me wrong, I want you to question everything in that damn place. But for the sake of your mutant powers, you need to learn as much as you can. Strength, control, knowledge. You need all of it. I'll be laying low for a while too, so keep that in mind. But all of us. We're 14, right? Then let's make a promise. 4 years. January 1st, 2016. Behind the school, at the fountain, the same place where Bobby froze himself for the first time. That's where we'll meet again. Rogue. I know you wanted to see me. I'm sorry I left before you woke up. But just know, I do care. And I'll see you again on that day. The same goes for all of you. Until then, get stronger. Because I won't stand beside you unless you're worthy of standing with me. We will change this world. Not now. But soon. Once we're ready. With love, Aiden Blake. By the time they finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye among them. They knew now, they couldn't stand beside Aiden. Not yet. Not as weak as they were. So they took his words to heart, not as a farewell, but as a challenge. Aiden wasn't abandoning them. He was setting a standard. A bar they had to reach. And when the time came, they would rise to meet him. 3 years had passed. Aiden had kept his promise, laying low, attending public schools, and finishing his education like a normal teenager. He didn't see himself becoming a hero, at least not yet, but staying out of the spotlight didn't mean he had stopped growing stronger. His battle against Magneto and the Sentinels had rewarded him generously. Mission completed. Save Rogue from the Brotherhood of Mutants. Rewards, 150,000 EXP. Bonus achievements. Defeated Blob, plus 20,000 EXP. Defeated Juggernaut, plus 70,000 EXP. Defeated Mystique, plus 20,000 EXP. Defeated Emma Frost, plus 70,000 EXP. Defeated Magneto, plus 180,000 EXP. Defeated Sentinels, 10x, plus 300,000 EXP. Total XP gained, 810,000 EXP. His level had skyrocketed, and his stats reflected that progress. Stats. Level, 49 greater than 80. XP, 1,057,953, 38,364 until next level. Extra stats, 31 greater than 0. Strength, 33 greater than 40 greater than 50. Agility, 25 greater than 32 greater than 35. Endurance, 20 greater than 27 greater than 30. Magic, 31 greater than 38 greater than 48 1. Resistance, 20 greater than 27 greater than 30. Charm, 15 greater than 22 greater than 24. Dragon Slayer Affinity. Generation 1. Fire, 100%, Dragon Force, greater than Purgatory, 10%, greater than 40. Sky, 100%, Dragon Force, greater than Gale, 40%. Iron, 100%, Dragon Force, greater than metal, 33.33%, iron 100% / diamond 0% / gold 0%, 6. Sage, 15% 1. Law, 0% - greater than 10% 2. Earth, 00%, greater than 45%. Water, 07% greater than 84%. Generation 2. Darkness, 10% - greater than 80%. White, 04% greater than 95%. Lightning, 07% greater than 100, Dragon Force, 2. Poison, 00% greater than 07%. Wood, 07% greater than 15% 1. Aiden scrolled through his system screen as he sat at the dining table, eating breakfast. Just as he was about to take another bite. Boom. Something crashed into him at full speed. Big bro. Aiden nearly choked on his food before he felt a pair of small arms wrap around him. He let out a chuckle, setting down his spoon as his little sister, Evelyn, clung to him like a rocket that had just made impact. "Good morning, Eve," he said, ruffling her hair. "Excited for your first day of middle school?" "Yup." She beamed, her bright eyes practically sparkling. "I can't wait." Lucy walked up behind Aiden, pouring him more juice before leaning down to kiss his cheek. "And don't forget, you're in your last year. Your SATs are coming up, young man." Aiden sighed. "Yes, Mom. Don't worry. You know I'll ace them." He leaned back in his chair, glancing at the window. "Honestly, I wasn't expecting us to move here, but Queens is actually kinda nice." Lucy smiled warmly. "Believe it or not, I studied at Midtown High too. If you check the old yearbooks, you'll find a picture of your mom in her prime time." Aiden smirked. "You still look amazing, Mom. I'm starting to doubt you even had me, you don't look a day over 30. Lucy playfully tapped his arm. "Flatterer. Did you learn that from your dad?" She leaned in, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "So? Are you using those smooth words on other girls, or just your mother?" Aiden groaned. "No, Mom. I'm still single," he sighed, leaning on the table. "I don't exactly want to date a girl, have her think I'm normal, and then, boom, she finds out I'm one of the most powerful mutants people see on TV. Comment." Lucy's expression softened. "Honey. Not everyone will fear you. Look at your dad and me." She cupped his cheek gently. "Besides, you could be seen as a hero. Like the Avengers. Or the Fantastic Four." Aiden stood up, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "I'm heading to school, Mom. If I ever find a girl I like, you'll be the first to know." He gave her a kiss on the cheek, ruffled Eve's hair again, and headed out the door. Aiden Blake walked through the bustling streets of Queens, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. Today was the start of his final year at Midtown High. One last year, and then he could finally focus on the bigger picture, protecting the world, starting his own organization, and laying the foundation for the future he had envisioned. But for now, he was just a high school student. Aiden's eyes flickered toward the rooftops. Hidden in the shadows, he sensed several figures keeping a close watch on him. Shield again. They really aren't going to stop, huh? A year ago, he had confronted a few of their agents in an alley, thinking they were threats. Only after a brief but violent altercation did they reveal their affiliation. He had complained to his father, Jason, but apparently, this surveillance came from a different sector, one that even his dad had no control over. "Just ignore them, son," his father had told him. "And promise me you won't kill any of them." Aiden had agreed. Begrudgingly. Still, their constant presence annoyed him. He had no interest in whatever they were plotting, and he sure as hell didn't want to hear some speech about the Avengers Initiative or any other nonsense. "I swear, if he shows up trying to recruit me." Aiden sighed and shook his head, refocusing on the day ahead. Midtown High was exactly as he expected, loud, chaotic, and full of students who had no idea what real danger looked like. Classes were uneventful. Aiden breezed through them, smarter than most of the kids around him but careful not to stand out too much. He mostly kept to himself, going through the motions. At least, that was the plan. The moment he stepped into the hallway between periods, he heard the familiar sounds of trouble, laughter, taunting, and a voice pleading for something to be returned. "Hey, give it back. Please. I have to go to class." A group of teens were tossing a backpack between them, playing keep away as a smaller boy ran back and forth, desperately trying to retrieve it. "You gotta be faster than that, loser." One of the bullies sneered. Aiden watched for a second before stepping in. The backpack flew toward another bully, only to be caught midair by him. The hallway fell silent. Aiden turned to the victim, holding the bag out. You should watch your stuff better. Don't make yourself an easy target. The bullied kid hesitated before quickly grabbing it. Thanks. One of the bullies stepped forward, puffing out his chest. Well. What do we have here? Some kind of hero? He started circling Aiden, cracking his knuckles. Look, everyone. The new kid thinks he's a big damn hero. The bully threw a punch. Aiden caught his wrist effortlessly, his grip tightening like a vice. The bully's confidence shattered in an instant as he struggled to pull away. It's not so funny when the opponent is stronger, is it? Aiden said, his voice calm. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he twisted the bully's arm back, forcing him to punch himself in the face. Paw. 3 hits, and then Aiden let him go. The bully stumbled back, dazed, before collapsing onto the floor. Aiden turned to the others. Anyone else want to taste their own fist? They quickly grabbed their friend and ran off without another word. The bullied kid adjusted his glasses, staring at Aiden in awe. Whoa! I never thought I'd see someone school flash like that. Aiden glanced toward the retreating bullies before turning back. You should do something about it yourself. It's not wise to let people push you around. The kid sighed. Yeah. You're right. Aiden could tell he was still feeling down, so he patted his shoulder. Don't beat yourself up. Just looking out for you. The kid gave him a small smile. Thanks. What's your name again? Aiden. Aiden Blake. You? Tryvying. The school bell rang loudly. Oh, crap. I'm late for class. The kid grabbed his backpack and sprinted down the hall. Nice to meet you, Aiden. I'm Peter Parker. Aiden froze. His brain registered the name, but it took him a second to process it. Peter. Fucking, Parker? His eyes followed the retreating boy as realization settled in. Shit. I should have realized. I totally forgot. This is Queens. Of course, I'd meet Peter Parker, that scrawny kid was Spider, Man. Before he could dwell on it any further, a voice interrupted his thoughts. You lost, new kid? Aiden turned. Standing behind him was a girl. Blonde hair tied back in a loose ponytail, bright blue eyes, and an air of confidence that immediately set her apart from the others. Oh. Yeah, kinda, Aiden admitted. Know where chemistry class is? I think that's where I'm supposed to be next. Perfect. 'Cause that's where I'm heading. Looks like we're classmates. She held out her hand. I'm Gwen. Gwen Stacy. Aiden's eyes widened again. What the fuck? Gwen tilted her head, amused. Are you just gonna stare, or? Aiden quickly snapped out of it and took her hand, shaking it. Aiden Blake. Sorry, I was mesmerized. Gwen blinked before a light blush crept onto her face. Damn. You're straightforward. Aiden smirked. Can't help it. You're beautiful. Gwen's blush deepened, but she played it off with a chuckle. Well, you look mesmerizing yourself, Aiden. Considering his natural charm, that wasn't surprising. With his charm stat at 24, he practically looked like a supermodel. Thanks, Aiden said smoothly. So, class? Gwen blinked, still a little flustered, before shaking it off. Yeah. Right. Follow me. As Aiden walked beside her, he couldn't help but sigh internally. Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy. This year is going to be interesting. Aiden sat at his desk, lazily spinning his pen between his fingers as he half listened to the chemistry lesson. He already knew all of this. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more he realized, he was way smarter than he should be. Why do I just get this stuff so easily? He wondered, glancing at his stats. His eyes landed on one particular entry. Sage Dragon Slayer minus 15%. That was the one element of his Dragon Slayer powers that he hadn't fully explored yet. Every other type had given him a clear ability, fire let him breathe flames, sky gave him wind control, but Sage? He had no idea what it actually did. Except, now that he thought about it, every time he read books on scientific subjects or complex theories, they made way more sense than they should have. Concepts he had never studied just clicked instantly. Is this why I understand things so easily? Some kind of knowledge-based enhancement? Before he could think further, the teacher's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Mr. Blake. Aiden blinked and looked up. The teacher, a middle-aged man with glasses, was staring at him expectantly. You seem rather distracted. Perhaps you can answer this, then. The teacher smirked and wrote a complicated chemical equation on the board. What is the final result of this reaction, given the conditions of high temperature and pressure? The class fell silent. Even Peter Parker, who was known as the smartest student in Midtown High, turned to see how Aiden would respond. Aiden barely hesitated. He smiled, leaned back in his chair, and casually answered. The reaction proceeds through a decomposition process, breaking down into carbon dioxide and water vapor while releasing excess energy in the form of heat. If you add a catalyst, it'll accelerate, but without one, it's still spontaneous due to the Gibbs free energy being negative at those conditions. The room went dead quiet. The teacher blinked, clearly impressed. Correct, Mr. Blake. He gave a small smile. Looks like Peter has a challenger in this class. Make sure to pay attention, though, while your answer is correct, don't get too complacent. Aiden nodded with a smirk. Yes, sir. I'll pay attention. As the teacher continued the lesson, Gwen leaned toward Aiden, her bright blue eyes studying him curiously. Looks like you're not all looks, are you? She whispered. Aiden turned to her, his emerald green eyes gleaming with amusement. I'm much more than you can guess. Gwen chuckled, shaking her head. Intriguing. Before the conversation could continue, the school bell rang, signaling the end of class. Students began packing up their books, chattering as they moved toward the door. Aiden stretched, already thinking about lunch. Lunchtime rolled around, and Aiden walked into the cafeteria, scanning the room for a place to sit. His eyes landed on Peter Parker, sitting alone at a table, idly poking at his lunch with a fork. Man, why not? Aiden thought. I should get to know Spider-Man better anyway. Or rather, Peter in this case. Without hesitation, Aiden strolled over and plopped down across from Peter, who nearly dropped his fork in shock. Aiden. Hi, Peter stammered, looking around as if making sure Aiden hadn't sat down at the wrong table. You sure you want to sit with a loser loner like me? Aiden let out a sigh. You still selling yourself short? I don't care about high school hierarchy, Peter. I do whatever I want, whenever I want. Before Peter could respond, another voice chimed in. Looks like someone shares my opinion. Gwen Stacy slid into the seat next to Aiden, casually resting her chin on her hand as she faced Peter with an amused smirk. I've been telling this nerd every day that high school isn't forever. Peter let out a nervous chuckle. Gwen. Hi. Aiden raised an eyebrow. Looks like you two know each other? Peter rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah. Gwen's been my partner and rival for a long time. And still can't keep up, Gwen teased before adding, but I am better at practical skills. Peter rolled his eyes as the three of them dug into their food. The conversation was light, filled with easy banter, until Peter suddenly stopped mid-bite, his gaze locked on something, or rather, someone, across the cafeteria. Aiden followed his line of sight and spotted a girl with vibrant red hair, a confident stride, and a presence that turned heads the moment she entered the room. Her beauty was striking, her body toned, and her attitude exuded effortless charm. Still foaming over her, Parker? Gwen teased, smirking at Peter's love-struck expression. What? No. I was just, Peter stammered before sighing and hanging his head low. Aiden leaned back, arms crossed. Who is she? Gwen grinned mischievously. That's Mary Jane Watson. Everyone calls her MJ, though. She's basically the school's queen, or so they say. Flash Thompson's girlfriend and Peter's longtime crush. What? She's not my crush. Peter protested, turning red. Aiden hummed, watching MJ for a moment before smirking. Another important figure, huh? Too bad there's no Ned to be seen here. Shame. Gwen suddenly narrowed her eyes playfully. Looks like someone else is crushing on her too. Aiden raised an eyebrow and smirked. She's not bad. Good looking, sure. Gwen crossed her arms. Aha. But, Aiden continued, turning to her with a teasing grin, I much prefer a hot nerd over her. Gwen's eyes widened slightly as a faint blush dusted her cheeks. Peter, meanwhile, groaned, rolling his eyes. Great. Aiden just chuckled to himself. Yeah, this year was definitely going to be fun. I like how things are normal. Muttered Aiden. Gwen caught on as she said, What do you mean? Nothing, just a thought. Replied Aiden. His life was finally normal, normal friends, normal high school, and average days, surely that won't change? Aiden walked down the familiar path toward home, his hands in his pockets, his mind at ease. It had been a week since he started attending his new school, and honestly, life had been pretty chill. Well, except for one small issue. Damn bastards. They've been tailing me all week, he muttered, eyes flicking toward the reflection of a parked car in a shop window. I'll have to tell father about this. It's getting ridiculous. But today, something was different. Before he could take another step, a sleek black car pulled up right in front of him, its polished exterior practically screaming government business. The door clicked open, and a man in a black suit and dark sunglasses stepped out. Aiden Blake, the man said, his tone firm and controlled. You need to come with us. Aiden raised an eyebrow. And what for? It's important that you follow us. This is official business, the man replied, flashing a badge. Aiden scoffed. Man. Am I supposed to recognize that shit? The agent remained unfazed. Mr. Blake, we know you recognize the shield badge. Please, don't make this harder for us. Your father is already an agent with us, just come quietly. Aiden smirked. My dad told me not to follow shady people into shady places. The rear car door opened, and a different man stepped out. His posture screamed authority, but to Aiden, he just looked like a grade A asshole. Listen here, kid, the man said, stepping closer. Your father isn't here to cover for you. You're a walking threat to national security, and you've been called in for questioning. If you don't cooperate, we'll have to take extreme measures, and trust me, you won't like them. Aiden let out a deep sigh, rubbing his temple. Listen here, bastard, he said, his tone slow and deliberate. I've been keeping a low profile for 3 fucking years now. Stop making threats you can't back up, or I'll break those twig legs of yours and send you home in a wheelchair. Now, get the fuck out of my face. He turned to leave. But then, Aiden Blake. The agent barked. We have agents at your home's doorstep. If you do not comply, we will take your mother in for questioning instead. The moment those words left his mouth, the very air was sucked from the space around them. A crushing, suffocating pressure filled the area as Aiden stopped in his tracks. The agent, Garrett, didn't even have time to react before Aiden had already moved. In an instant, Aiden's hand was right in the man's face, inches from caving his skull in. Silence. Garrett's eyes widened in sheer terror. His breath hitched. His legs shook. And then, just as fast as it appeared, the pressure vanished. The agent collapsed onto the pavement, gasping for breath, his face pale as death. But Aiden didn't even spare him a second glance. Instead, he calmly walked past, opened the car's back seat, and slid in. Sitting there, he exhaled deeply, whispering to himself. Calm down. Calm down. Find out what you need first. He pulled out his phone, his fingers typing out a quick message before he locked the screen and leaned back. I hope he understands. And helps me, he murmured under his breath. Outside, one of the other agents rushed to Garrett's side. Agent Garrett. Are you all right, sir? Still visibly shaken, Garrett forced himself up, taking in a deep breath before an unsettling grin crept onto his face. I told you. He muttered, regaining his composure. He won't do much if we bring his mother into this. Now, let's get going with the questioning. The car ride was silent, lasting about half an hour before they finally stopped near a nondescript government building. Aiden leaned his head back, watching the scenery pass by, his expression unreadable. Once they arrived, Agent Garrett turned to him and held out a pair of metallic cuffs. These are mutant suppressors. Put them on, Garrett ordered. Aiden looked at the cuffs with sheer disgust but let out a long sigh. Fine. He clasped the cuffs around his wrists without hesitation. Not that it mattered. They did absolutely nothing to him, but he let them believe otherwise. Let them think they had control. 1. They led him inside the building, guiding him through security, up several floors, and finally into an obvious interrogation room, a plain gray cell with nothing but a metal table and 2 chairs. Aiden sat down, leaning back as he stared at the mirror on the wall, knowing full well it was one-way glass. Then, he waited. And waited. And waited. An hour passed. Aiden sighed deeply, drumming his fingers against the table before slamming his hands down hard, shaking the entire room. You pieces of fucking shit. I do not give a fuck about this shitty-ass tactic of let him wait to break his mental state or some dumb shit like that. If no one walks into this room in the next 5 fucking minutes and tells me what the fuck is going on, I will fucking break something in this goddamn place. His voice boomed through the room, echoing into the hallways outside. The force behind his words carried a weight that made even the unseen observers flinch. 3 minutes later, The door finally creaked open. Agent Garrett stepped inside, a smug grin plastered on his face. Quite the outburst there, kid. But let's be honest here. He leaned forward, voice dripping with condescension. You have no fucking power anymore. So stop acting arrogantly. Your abilities are already restrained, and this room? It's designed to hold the Hulk. Even outside, there are dozens of agents armed with weapons meant to eliminate Thor himself if necessary. Aiden stared at him, completely unimpressed. Tell me what the fuck you need from me, he said coldly. And I'm warning you, shitface. If something happens to my mother or sister, I will burn you alive and turn you into fucking charred coal. That's a promise. Garrett let out a mocking laugh, tossing a file onto the table before sitting across from Aiden. Quite the threat, kid. But what was it you said earlier? Don't make threats you can't back up? Oh, that's right. Don't make threats you can't follow through on. He chuckled before flipping the file open. Now, tell us where your dad is. Aiden's eyes flicked to the file. Inside was a photo, his father, Jason Blake, stepping out of an elevator. Standing beside him was a blonde woman. Man, what the fuck is this? Aiden frowned, looking up. Isn't he on a mission with you guys? My dad's been gone for a month now. Garrett's smirk vanished. His expression darkened. Don't play dumb with me, kid, he growled. Your father would absolutely call upon his monstrous kid to help him with his crimes. Aiden's brow furrowed. Crimes? What the fuck are you talking about? Garrett sat back, tilting his head as if studying him. Jason Blake is suspected of kidnapping Sue Storm, a member of the Fantastic Four, with the help of Victor Von Doom. Your father is now a wanted criminal. Aiden's entire body froze. What? His voice was dangerously low. You heard me, Garrett sneered. Your dad worked with Dr. Doom to kidnap the Invisible Woman. And if you really don't know where he is, then we'll have to keep you here until we determine your involvement. Aiden's hands clenched into fists under the table. You're no hero, kid, Garrett continued, voice full of venom. You've already killed Magneto, so we know you're capable of things beyond simple self-defense. We cannot risk you helping your father or retaliating against S.H.I.E.L.D. on his behalf. So until we find out what's really going on. He smirked. You're not going anywhere. Aiden's breath was steady, but his mind was racing. His father? A criminal? Working with Doom? There was no fucking way.